Hello and welcome to the New You, Health and Happiness Hour, with certified nutritional therapist, Gerald Kostecka. At New You, your improved health and happiness is our mission. It gives me great pleasure to introduce the New You founder and creator, and your host, Mr. Gerald Kostecka.
Hello and welcome to another episode of New You Health and Happiness Hour with Gerald Kostecka. I am your host, Gerald Kostecka. I'd like to welcome you today. So today's episode to me is very, very special. I get to talk to somebody who I've actually known now for close to 10 years. He and I have been able to do some things in the past, and I thought he was the perfect person to talk about our topic for today in regards to health and happiness. He has had an incredible career as a professional bodybuilder. As a matter of fact, in that space, this gentleman is actually considered a living legend. He has his accolades are so long, we'd be here for an hour just talking about that. The gentleman's name is Toney Freeman. And the one thing I'm going to let everybody know beyond everything else is that you're going to find out about this gentleman's career, his mindset, attitudes, goal setting, things of that nature. But I want you to know how truly nice a guy he actually is. That was one of the things that impressed me the most, because a lot of times when you see somebody who's 6'2" with a competition bodybuilding weight of 305 pounds, nice is not the first thing you think. Intimidating is the first thing you think. But I'm going to let you know something. This gentle giant is a wonderful guy, and I feel very honored to be able to have him on today's episode. So with that said, Toney, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm great, man. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
I've been fantastic. I have been absolutely fantastic. I appreciate you carving out some time for us today. I know you are a very, very busy man. So Toney, I'm very familiar with your background, with your just amazing career that you've had. But some people out there might not be familiar with the bodybuilding world. So why don't we get started by maybe having you give us a little bit about your background, kind of how you got into everything, and kind of your journey up to this point when it comes to bodybuilding and the health and wellness industry.
Cool. Well, I'm a preacher's kid, oldest of four. You know, I grew up in North Indiana, South Bend, and I moved down south to Huntsville in my teenage years. Then we moved over to Georgia. I graduated from high school in Savannah, Georgia. I ended up, I graduated early. I ended up getting a job during my last 2 years of school. So half the day I went to school, half the day I worked construction. Anyway, that ended me up working construction. I ended up in Atlanta, and that's kind of where my bodybuilding career started. I was about 160 pounds at 6'2", 21 years old. And my first son's mother, who is my ex-wife now, she had a friend who was a bodybuilder, and I never had seen one in person, only on TV, you know. So when I saw that a real person can actually do it, it kind of like inspired me. And I remember after seeing this picture, I joined the gym the next day, and I mean, I won't say the rest is history, but because it was one of these numbers.
Oh, sure.
But I kind of took the bodybuilding like a fish to water. It was something that, you know, I played team sports my whole life. But on a team sport, you can only be as good as the team. And in bodybuilding, you still need a team, but you have to do the work. I used to always tell people, you know, in bodybuilding, professional bodybuilding especially, you can't draft, you know, better players. You can't trade players and, you know, all that type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, you really have to every single rep, every single meal, every single step of cardio, you have to do it yourself or it won't happen. So that just taught me a lot about being independent, but also it helped me learn how to balance, because when you're trying to be the best in the world at something, balance is, you know, usually not an option. But, you know, I turned pro at 36. I already had a family, so I had to be balanced. And so it kind of taught me that. And then what bodybuilding really taught me is how the human body works and how important it is to take care of it. Now, you know, most people, they see bodybuilding, they see all the muscle. But in order for a skinny kid to, first of all, visualize that that's possible and then go down the path, you know, I had a 30-year career, so it wasn't like a, you know, overnight success. It was something that I basically carved myself out of that stick. And for me to be able to be, you know, single digit body fat with a 31-inch waist at 305 pounds. Again, my email is Toney Freeman 305, and it was because my goal was to be 305 pounds. But when I made the email, I was probably about 270. You know what I'm saying? Like it was
Forward
something.
thinking. It was very forward thinking.
And yeah, so that's kind of, I did very well in bodybuilding. Was top 5 in the world for quite a long time. Top 10 to 15 for over a decade, and I competed with all the greats: Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler, Dexter Jackson, Phil Heath, Kai Green, Victor Martinez. I don't want to leave nobody out, Dennis Wolf, but that was like the main.
There's so many greats. That's the thing. Right. There's so many greats.
That was and I started lifting in the era of Lee Haney, and then Flex Wheeler, Chris Cormier, Dorian Yates, and then Ronnie Coleman. So I've been around basically for the old school and the new school. And so turning pro at 36, I really had to learn how to take care of myself, because most athletes retire in their 30s. So,
right, you were just starting your career.
So I had to really learn how to like I said, how the body functions and how to take care of myself. That's kind of how I found the water, and that's right. Why we're called.
Well, that is fantastic. And it's interesting, because if you really think about it, one of the reasons that most bodybuilders have the shoulders that they do is because of all the weight that they carry. And I'm not talking about in the gym. Yeah, I'm talking about, just the everyday stuff. And in life. One of the things too is, for people that aren't real familiar with bodybuilding, I don't know what the average height of a professional bodybuilder is, but I've got to imagine it's somewhere in the mid 5 foot range, probably 5'6" to about 5'10". That's typically, and that's one of the reasons that when you think about scale, some of these guys just look gigantic, and it's because they have a smaller frame. That's one of the reasons they actually look so much bigger. And I think that was one of the reasons that you stood out to so many people, is that much like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who I believe is also 6'2", to be able to amass the girth and bulk that you did on that size frame is very, very rare. That's why when you would get up there, man, you just stood out like a beacon compared to these other guys. And it was, they were all in fantastic shape, but there was just something about the overall, like, bigger than life appearance when you would get up to do like a pose down, or you'd get up to do your thing, man. And I think that's something that people need to keep in mind, is that for you to be able to get that size, it really was a lot more work, because quite literally you had to build even bigger muscle for it to look scaled appropriate. So that's
you're breaking it down. That's
it's pretty incredible that you were able to do that. And as you said too, Toney, you and I met as a result of the alkaline water that has also been a very important part of New You. And it's when I actually I went back, because I was like, wait a second, I've known Toney now for years, man. And I'm like, when did we first do that? I looked at it. Did you know that I published that first magazine in 2014? It's been almost 10 years, man. And I was just like, wow, because the time flies, it just flies. But yeah, so I had published some magazines for the actual water project. And Toney was gracious enough to be my cover model. And he ended up doing a 2-page interview spread that kind of talked about his interaction and experience with the water as it pertained to his bodybuilding. And that is a whole nother conversation, though, because today what we're going to be talking about is some things that I don't think a lot of people correlate when it comes to health and happiness. And I do want to mention something about health and happiness. I've actually had some people asking me, hey, Jerry, what's the deal, man? Why are you doing? Because they're like, everything I normally hear is health and wellness. And it's like, why are you taking this like health and happiness approach? And the main reason is because if you really want to be happy in your life, the reality is you need to have your health in check. You have to have your health, because without that, I don't care what you have, happiness won't be one of those things if you don't have your health. And I think one of the best examples of that, and it's a very unfortunate example, is Steve Jobs. We're talking about a man who literally had anything and everything on the material side that a person could desire, but he didn't have his health. And it ended up taking him, I think, sooner than it needed to. And so keep in mind that, when it comes to your health, take your health seriously and look at all the different aspects and factors about health and happiness, and start identifying some of these things that aren't the obvious. Look, the obvious things are just that. They're obvious, good eating and some activity, those type of things. But we also have to remember that there's those things that kind of go on the back burner when it comes to health and happiness. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about mindset, goals, and goal setting. And most importantly, and Tony, you and I just talked about this before we started the show, attitude.
Right.
Because you want to talk about foundational. I believe that the water is very foundational for health through hydration. I think being properly hydrated is an important physical aspect to health and wellness and health and happiness. But things like your mindset, being able to set goals, and your attitude, those are some of those mental components that are just as important. As a matter of fact, they're probably more important than the physical foundations, because you need to be able to build on that mental foundation. That's really what you need to be able to build on. So, Tony, let's jump right into the questions. And I'll tell you what, you know me, I usually do things right off the cuff. I'm usually really good. But when it comes to an interview like this, I want to make sure that I read the question that I really want to have. So I'm going to read it. So once I get done with this, man, please just jump in and let's hear what you got to say, okay? So this is about mindset for health, happiness, and wellness. So Tony, throughout your illustrious bodybuilding career, you've often spoken about the mental aspects of training. Can you delve into the importance of the correct mindset when pursuing health and wellness, and how it has influenced your own journey?
First of all, realize that it's a journey. When most people get introduced to fitness or wellness or whatever, it's a goal. They have a goal in mind. I want to lose 20 pounds, or I want to, put an inch on my bicep, whatever it is. So that's like your initial motivation. But that kind of goes away after a while, especially if you don't get the result that you're seeking in the time frame that your mind imagined it. So just realizing that, number one, it's a journey, then it's a choice. Happiness is definitely a choice. You can't allow your circumstances to control whether or not you're happy or not, because you'll be like a yo-yo. And that's why so many people have anxiety and stuff like that. Happiness comes from within. Now, we do fall short and we do get disappointed and all that, and that's cool, that's normal. But real happiness is really a state of mind. And the obstacles are the same, but your perspective changes when you're truly happy. And I will, when I retired from bodybuilding, bodybuilding was my life. First it started as a passion. I was inspired, right? And then I got motivated. And then, once I saw it was something I wanted, I got committed and dedicated. And then when you get to a certain level, then you start leaning towards obsession. And then when you get to the highest level where you could have an opportunity to be the best in the world, then it turns into almost a possession. Like, in other words, it's you, but it's an outside force that's not even within you, because, you can hear people say, I'm in beast mode right now. I'm like, that's a real thing. Like that's an attachment to you. And so, I went through all those levels. And then when I got to a certain age, I was like, okay, well, I can't do this forever. I got to start preparing for what's next. Right. So I decided that I was going to retire at 50. I kind of set up my career to end like Kobe did. I was going to do, all the shows and then say my farewell or whatever. Anyway, so my first show, it was in Poland. I did something to my leg. I had an injury, a soft tissue injury, and it wouldn't heal. I went to Poland, did fine, came back to America to do the Arnold Classic. And after that show, my leg just not having it. And my next show was in Australia, a 30-hour trip away. And so I didn't want to take that risk, until I knew what was going on. So that's what really started me on my health quest. So I initially started it just so I can stay in the sport and have longevity. But then when I finished, I had to fix myself. You know what I'm saying? So it took a different meaning and a different energy. So the mindset to build my body up was one thing. And then the mindset to heal my body was a total another mindset. Because the initial mindset was to consume. and to build. And so where I'm at now is taking all that knowledge and wisdom that I gathered over the years, you know, because wisdom comes from experience. Right. And now to be able to share that with other people and allow them to help them create the mindset, because you got to do it on your own, but give them a program or give them a protocol or give them the guidance where they can actually get results right away. And then that strengthens you and it takes you to the next level. But I also can tell you how far not to go, or at least warn you that's what's waiting on you if you choose to continue. And so I feel like, you know, I could be a blessing to people to share that and show them that almost in the beginning. When I got a guy who I'm training now, a really good friend of mine, we turned really good friends. He hasn't done anything physical in 15 years. So I couldn't just take him into the gym and say, let's go, you know, and just kill him. So what I had to do is I said, he said, you want me to, you know, diet? Or I said, first, let's be consistent. Let's work on your consistency. So we started with 3 days a week. And then after the first week of working with me, I guess maybe he thought I was going to kill him. But after the first week of working with me, he said, hey, I want to do this 5 days a week because I really want to accelerate the progress. And so you see how his mindset went from, I don't want to work out at all, to my wife wants me to work out for health and blah, blah, blah. And now I want to dedicate myself to 5 days a week. And it's a progressive thing. And so if you stay in reality and don't establish your foundation based on a specific goal, I always tell people, just start and then work on being consistent. And then when you're consistent with whatever it is, now you can start making adjustments, and then you'll see the results from the adjustments, which will continue to motivate you and continue to allow you to make progress and results. And sometimes I ramble, but I hope I broke it down for you. That was understand perfect. The whole thing, because it's not just a light switch. You know, right. You know, January 1st is not going to make you stick to it. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So I just, you know, it's like it has to consume you to a point, or your why has to be big enough to where you step outside of your normal thought process, and then, you know, how they say, you buy into it and you do it.
That's so a great point.
Having a mentor to...
Yeah, I was just going to say that you said something earlier about the fact, like in bodybuilding, you know, it's really you that's up there. So a lot of that pressure falls on you, but that there is a team behind you. And while it's true that when it comes to mindset, you do have to make that decision. That is one of the biggest things with New You, is we talk about assumption of personal responsibility. And it's like, nobody's going to care about your health more than you do. And nor should they. That should be your top priority, not somebody else's. But that being said, finding someone to help you along the way, whether it be somebody like me with New You that can take my story and what has happened, whether it be somebody like you who has a career of building their body and you know, you coaching and mentoring and helping people. I think people need to understand that it's not only helpful, it's full on beneficial to find that person, to find somebody who's going to coach you along the way. Because, you know, I think people forget that, you know, every one of these greats that we ever think of in sports, whether it be Kobe, whether it be Tom Brady, whether it be, you know, whoever, Eddie Hall, whether it be whoever, they all had a coach, all of them.
Coaches.
Like, you know, coaches, exactly. Yeah. And it's an important thing to remember that in something like a journey to improved health and finding that true level of happiness, you do not, it's not a solo journey. Right. It's a journey that other people are going to accompany you on. The thing that you have to do is make that decision. You have to solidify that mindset that says, okay, whatever's happened up to this point, I'm the result of that. And I'm not happy with that result. So I need to change things. But that's why we talk, man. Mindset is one of those first things. It's like that foundational thing that you have to be willing to make that choice, you know. And Tony, you also said something very, very poignant in my opinion, which is about the health and happiness aspect, basically not being that it's in your head. It's like, it's not, happiness is a state of being. It's a choice. It's not a possession. It's not a thing, you know. And I think that's one of the sad things that's happening right now societally, is that people, especially with these younger kids, and that's one of the, I'm really hopeful that you know, the 20, 30, 40-year-olds right now are the ones that are looking at this, because now that, like, you and I are into our 50s, a lot of the lessons that we probably would have never cared about when we were in our 20s, we're realizing how important they are. And
We live off.
I know for me, I'm trying to help people that I don't want people to have to go through the bad things I've gone through. If they can learn something and garner something from my negative experiences that I've been able to turn around and create positives out of, that's what I'm trying to accomplish. And I know you have the same type of goals when it comes to that you're trying to help people not make the same mistakes so that they don't have to encounter those same hurdles that we've encountered.
Yeah. Some people are, in your journey, like I said, you got to realize it's a journey. You have people who are spectators or cheerleaders. Then you have adversaries, right? And then you have people who are pioneering with you. So collaboration is key. And so, if you're really trying to, get on the health and happiness and wellness journey, find somebody that wants to go with you, because usually they say, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you got to go with others. And so if you get a group together, and everybody holds each other accountable, I mean, you can do great things. I mean, that's
Absolutely.
part of my success. When I went from bodybuilding, like I told you, I was miserable because I couldn't do what I wanted to do. My whole income, everything was based on that. Well, when I took the muscle suit off, then all those opportunities went away with it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
So I had to reinvent myself. But first I had to get myself healthy, or I wasn't going to be around anyway. And
right.
Over the last, I retired in 2016, and over the last, I'm going on 7 years. March will be 7 years. A lot of my friends who I was standing, arm's length from on stage are no longer here. You know what I'm saying? And they were 10 plus years younger than me. I was the old dude up there. And but like I say, all your former sins or your former shortcomings or your habits or whatever it is you got to answer for that one day. And but the beautiful thing about that is when you repent, and I'm not just talking about repenting to God, I'm talking about repenting, meaning changing the way you think. That's repentance. When you repent, then it becomes simpler. It's not easy, but it becomes simpler. And I tell people, start with desire, then consistency, and then start manipulating, because the path is not straight. You know what I'm saying? Some things aren't going to work. And that's where a mentor comes in, because I tell people I'm an expert. They say if you do 10,000 hours or 10 years or something, you become an expert. So I'm an expert, but I'm an expert at what not to do, which actually makes me pretty good. You know what I'm saying? And so
sometimes it's more important to know what not to do than know what to do.
Exactly.
Because
knowing what to do, you learn that after the fact.
Right.
Or what not to do can save you from even going there in the first place. But when you know what not to do, at least when you get to the obstacle, it's an obstacle and not something to make you want to quit or whatever. So like we say, mindset is everything, but it comes from within, and results is what's going to drive you to continue. So if you want results, start with the basics, the desire, the consistency, then the mentor, which will allow you to get results, which will allow you to keep your mindset and end up reaching your goal and probably surpassing it, because the goalpost is going to continue to move as you get closer to it.
Well, basically, what a great transition, because that really is what I wanted to talk about. So since you mentioned goals, let's jump right into the second question, which is establishing realistic goals, because I do think that's an important thing. So setting achievable yet challenging goals is a crucial aspect of any athlete's career. In your experience, how do you determine what is a realistic goal for yourself? And what advice would you give to others about setting and pursuing their own fitness objectives?
Well, we can't lie to ourselves. You can try. And the man in the mirror is who you got to answer to. I was just listening to someone the other day, and I realized that what allowed me to really wake up is because we're not in control. We think we are, but in reality, there's a few things you can control. what you see, what you look at, what you listen to, what you eat, and what you say. That's about it.
That is about
And
it.
if you got the remote control in your hand, you can turn on television, but if it's not plugged up, then you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
There's outside
God gave
forces
us a
that can
little bit of
influence
control.
it.
And what you can control is usually about arm's length away from you, because as soon as your spouse or child or dog or whatever leaves you, you're not in controlling it. You know, so learning that is a fact, and then you apply that to your goals and say, well, I'm the one that has to get up at 5 or 6 a.m. I'm the one that's got to do the cardio and take the supplements and cook the meals and eat. You know what I'm saying? So that you have to acquire that attitude, but like I say, it comes from getting results. And if you have a basic plan, a plan of consistency leads to a goal. So, you know, me being a bodybuilder, I'm 162 pounds. My first goal was to be 200 pounds. Well, to me, that seemed like a lifetime away. And once I got there, I would be straight. But it took me 2 years to get to 200 pounds. And then I was kind of stuck at 200 pounds for, I don't know, maybe another year and a half. Then I met this guy one day, and he showed me how to really train, like how to leave it all in the gym. You know what I'm saying? Like where you have to like rest in order to leave after you finish working so hard. But anyway, when he taught me that, then I learned about food after that. Now my goals can change because now I have the tools or the wisdom, the expertise that somebody, let me borrow so I can go out there and chase my dreams and desires. And so when you're trying to set a goal, be realistic with yourself, take a good look in the mirror, realize that it's a journey, not a destination. You see these 30-day, 60-day, 90-day cleanses and turns around and all that. And that's just really that's just the appetizer. That's just to get you in the mode.
That's to fit into a dress or a suit for a wedding. That is not long-term sustainable.
Yep. I created a 7-day internal transformation. I said it's not 7 days, but if I can't say it's forever because nobody will do it. I said, but I know if you complete the 7 days, you have number one, you've cleansed your temple at least a little bit, right? And then you've also hurdled some obstacles that you probably didn't even think you could do, right? So that's 2 things. And you got the guidance, and you've experienced what it feels like to have less inflammation, clean digestive tract, what it feels like to have real nutrition. And you know what I'm saying? Like it only takes a few days. You could do 3 days and see that kind of result. Right. But the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th day is the mental part.
Right.
Then once you do that, as long as you didn't say at the end of 7 days, I'm just going to jump off, pull the parachute and be done, you will be able to continue on and go to the next goal and to the next goal. Look at a goal as a milestone or an exit. Right. You don't have to get off at every exit. Someday you're going to go past some, and sometimes you might get a flat tire and not have to get somebody to help you. But as long as you know it's a journey and you keep moving forward and you set realistic goals based on your genetics, your work ethic, your resources, you'll do well.
Yeah, I think one of the important things also about goals is making them realistic, but at the same time also make them lofty. You don't want your goals to be so realistic that you can achieve them tomorrow. Right. There needs to almost be that. And I think like what you said with your 7-day program that you had introduced, it's more about creating a new habit. That's really what it's about, is that most people that aren't really happy with themselves, they've gotten themselves into really bad habits. And it's very hard to break those. As people, we become very routine oriented, whether that routine is something that's great for us or killing us. We become, kind of ingrained in that. Like for me, I'm going to use this as an example with me setting goals. Back when I started the water business, my first year, we did relatively well, financially, but I had no idea what I was doing. So going into the second year, I sat down with my goals and I was like, I know what I'm doing now. I'm gonna rock this thing. So I actually set my goals to earn $500,000 in my second year with the water. That was my goal. Now, ironically enough, I missed that goal by just over half. I missed it, man. But I made $245,000 that year. So making that lofty goal made me really put my nose to the grindstone to try to achieve it. And where I missed it by half, at the end of the day, I still made $250,000. So it's like making that lofty goal, understand that even if you don't achieve it the way that you had originally like wanted to or put down on paper, that the pursuit of that goal is what will bring you something loftier than you would have if you weren't pursuing it. So, you know, that's, for me, that was a great example of set them lofty, but still attainable, and then just go after it and do what's necessary to make it a reality.
Right. You know, in that same equation is, you know, network marketing, MLM, whatever it is, you know, you have people at the top, but once you get to a certain level, the only way to really continue to grow is to reach down and help other people.
Absolutely.
So when you figure something out and you get good at it, you become the mentor. You probably still need a mentor to get to your next level, but now you could be the mentor for people that are trying to get to your level. And it's just a perpetual thing. And it's really cool, especially once you embrace it. You know, they say, you know, if you help as many people as you can get what they want, you end up what you want, what you want. That's really a true statement. It really, really is. You know, I'll say as a bodybuilder, I achieved all my physical goals. I didn't win the Mr. Olympia, but because I had a pec tear, I had some doubt that it was even possible, because in my sport, they were looking for the imperfection.
Right.
And the rest of it was pretty well put together. So the imperfection is easy for your eyes to go to it. So I knew that was going to be, you know, one of the things that would keep me from going all the way to the top. But now from this side of the pond, from this perspective, I realized that it wasn't for me. You know, once you get to that level, you're already Mr. Olympia. The only thing you're missing is the title and check.
Right.
So once I realized, wait a minute, I've been Mr. Olympia for the last 10 years. I've been doing the Mr. Olympia and been competitive in it. So it's just a matter of who they choose or who's the best that particular day. But the rest of the days, I'm Mr. Olympia. You know what I'm saying? So
you don't get invited to that stage.
Exactly.
If you're not an actual contender, and if you're an actual contender, it means something. Just like you said, man, you are. That is what you are.
You qualified to be there.
Right.
And so, but as an athlete, you don't really think like that until you win. You still, but in reality, and that's where you have to come to when whatever your career comes to an end, you have to come to reality. Okay, now what? Now what I'm going to do? How is this? All this time and effort and energy, because when I first came to the realization, I'm just like, man, it's over, it's gone. But it really was just the end of that and the beginning of this. And then, you know, I see things that are coming down the road that are going to send me to the next level. I'm really just praying for our world and our country, that more people wake up and decide to be the best person that they could possibly be. Imagine this. Now, I'm one of those dreaming type people. But if let's just say it was an international holiday, you know, be kind, be all you could be, day or week, and everybody literally opted in and did it, man, that would just be unbelievable. Because I know what a difference it made in me once I did recognize where, you know, I was going wrong, and I repented. Like I said, changed my thought process, and then God was able to open up the resources so I can heal myself. You know, when I first quit bodybuilding, I had a lot of issues. I had some kidney issues. I had parasite issues. I traveled all over the world. I mean, you know, and I'm a machine walking around, not even realizing that I'm breaking down slowly.
Right.
And when I had to sit down, and it was a soft tissue injury. So the doctor's like, you have to stop in order for it to heal. It's not healing because you won't stop moving.
You won't stop, right.
So anyway, so I had to sit down, and God will sit down and it gets real quiet, and then you can hear him. And then things open up and your attitude changes, and you desire and decide to do better. And then you start on that path and that journey, and there you are.
So Tony, that actually brings up a great point too. In your experience, and I think this is an important thing for people to understand, because a lot of times people get in their own heads, and they almost have that, I'm too far gone to care. I'm too far gone to change. You know, I'm too set in my ways. In your experience, if a person makes that decision, if they go and they look at that man or woman in the mirror and they say, I'm not happy with who's looking back at me, I want to make a change. If somebody is determined enough, have you ever seen somebody who, if they decided to make that change, couldn't make a change?
I've seen people quit, but I've never seen someone who really broke it down and dedicated, who did all those other things. Started small, got the mentorship. Really, you know what I'm saying? I know people who lost 600 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the thing. I just to encourage people out there to understand, it's never too late. It's never too late until you allow it to be too late. It's you just have to make that decision.
Well, I was gonna had another point I was gonna say earlier, but that's how it is. I see people all the time saying, you know, I can't do it or whatever, and I'm just like, when you said set in your ways, a lot of people. So when somebody says I'm set in my ways, right? What they have to do is realize that before that thing was in their life, right? And then there's a moment where they started doing that thing, right? Usually that is when you pick up some microbiome or parasite or something from the outside of you that has paired itself with you. And now you think it's you, but it's really that thing. So when you hear somebody say, I'm set in my ways, I drink, 2 liters of Coca-Cola, whatever that is, that's a bug. It's a parasite. It's something, it's either chemical or physical in your body that wasn't there before. And that's what turns people into an addict. And when they try to heal addicts, they try to reset their brain because it's a moment in time. But you have to cleanse the temple and reset the brain, and then you have a chance. And so it's the same thing, even if it's, I'm overweight and I don't want to be overweight anymore. Okay, well, then your attitude and the way you look at food has to change. Because we run to food for pleasure and taste and all that. But, I am a cookie monster. I love cookies. You know what I'm saying? I love pastries. I'm not a sweets thing, but cookies are like an actual cookie. Right. Like it could be 15 desserts in one cookie. I want the cookie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But, now that I know, I took this DNA test that told me that, flours, sugars, if I eat too many of that, I get fat around the middle. Now, when I'm eating it, I'm getting fat around the middle, but I didn't know it was like a DNA type situation.
Right.
And so once I got that knowledge, that information, I was just like, well, I can't just eat a cookie every time I see it or want it. So now, I haven't had a cookie in ever. You know what I'm saying? Like now I put cookies in their place. I still love them. They're still awesome. But did you know that crumble has 800 calories in one? It's like, wow. Okay, that's like once every 3 months type of situation. And so that's what it is. And everybody can do it. It's just a matter of having that conversation with yourself, because it's just you and you. No one else is controlling you. It's you and you.
I think you made a good point too when you used the word addict, because I think most people, when they think of an addict, you're thinking of somebody, somebody strung out in a back alley with a needle coming out of their arm. That's kind of, I think, the stereotypical like vision most people have. But people have to understand that you can literally become addicted to anything, whether it be food or beverages or a certain way of life, or there's so many different things that all being addicted to something is that it becomes the driving force instead of you. Mm-hmm. And so, don't be afraid to maybe make that personal realization that you do have some addictions in your life that need to be overcome. And whether that be with addiction with food or, like you said, with cookies, man, it's like, it's funny to say, it's like what you said, I'm a cookie monster, and that brings up its own little visions for anybody that's our age, cookie, we all know what that is, right?
Yep. That's what I'm thinking when I see them.
But at the same time, it's like you've now realized how that seemingly innocent little baked good actually can be much more detrimental to you than maybe somebody else too, because of that aspect of, if you want to call it, addiction, and it's funny how there can be a very fine line between addiction and strong desire. where
Yeah.
it goes from having it be a strong desire to literally something that you feel like you need.
Right.
So I mean, I appreciate the fact that you use that word, because I think it opened up the conversation to really be able to look at something in maybe a slightly different light. So that's I appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, setting the realistic goals obviously is something that anybody needs to do, especially I think if you're starting out on a health and happiness journey, you really need to have your expectations and your goals set realistically, because that really is the most difficult time. It's the time where you're trying to elicit change, and that is it can be very, very difficult, because you're trying to change habits that you've created in some cases over an entire lifetime. And that's not an easy prospect to face. But like you said, with the right mindset and mentality, with the right support system behind you, with the right mentorship, all those things, when they fall into place, can create an environment that is conducive for you to be able to become that best version of yourself. And maybe, you know, if all of us can kind of get on the same page with that, maybe that holiday that you were talking about could be a reality someday. Because I don't see why. It's like it almost seems like we have National War Day every day. Why can't we just one day have national, like, peace and well-being and mindfulness and consideration and all those different things that we all say we want? But if we really want those things, we got to be the first ones that start with making it happen, because it's real easy to point fingers at the whole rest of the world. I've always been a firm believer, man, if you're going to point a finger, you better start with the mirror.
Yeah.
You better start with the mirror.
Indeed. Indeed.
So
everybody has to realize when you come into this realm, you're pure, you're innocent. So however your attitude ends up, your personality and all that, it's because of whatever you were exposed to and what you absorbed and assimilated. And I use an illustration because a lot of people still don't put it in perspective. When I talk about weight loss, you know, when you're born, say you're 10 pounds, right? And say you weigh, I weigh 235 pounds right now. Well, what is that 223 pounds? What is that? You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't show up in this realm with it. And I have a, you feel me? And I used to be, well, really put in perspective, because I used to be 300 and, you know, like 312 pounds at, you know, 8% body fat. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just a lot of flesh. And as those layers, you know, when I quit, all those layers coming off, I'm just like, what was that? That was me plus whatever. And so people have to realize that the same way you get to where you are, stuck in a rut or whatever, you got to take the layers off and get back to that original you. And that's what cleansing the temple is all about.
And that's what the new you, that's why I chose that name, the new you, because basically what's happening to people is that they're becoming discontent with the you that they've become. And that to me is, okay, fine. If you've come to that realization that you're not happy in the space that you're occupying as a human being, okay, that's the old you then. It's time for you to take that, put it off to the side, make some changes, you know, mentality, you know, lifestyle choices, things of that nature, and be going after that new you. That if you're not happy with the old you, it's okay. You can push that aside and do something new. And that's exactly the reason that I chose the name New You, is because I think ultimately when people aren't happy, they're dissatisfied with where their life, where their body, where their mind has taken them. They kind of just need to know that something else is possible. And that's the premise of New You. That's the premise.
Awesome.
So, okay, well, listen, let's jump into, unless there was anything else you wanted to add about the goal setting.
Once I learned how to do what I learned how to do for myself, it became my mission to help reintroduce yourself to your non-toxic self. That person you were before you started smoking or whatever it is. Smoking just first thing came to mind. You know what I'm saying? Like before that person is still in there somewhere, but now you have all these other outside things that are attached, and those things, a lot of those things you're going to have to shed to get back to where you're supposed to be, so you can continue the journey. Because the evil one wants to distract us, and because time is doesn't matter to them, it could take your whole entire life. It could take 70 years, 80 years, you know. and no problem, I can wait. You know what I mean? And so that's why most people end up, seeking God in the end of their lives, so they realize, wow, and they start thinking about all the things that they've been through their lives. And so, like I say, that's where finding a mentor to at least tell you those things.
Right.
So imagine if somebody told you, okay, you're going to go on this journey. I just got back, right? When you get to such and such, look out for this. When you get, if you had that from your innocence to now, you would have made so many different decisions. It's not even funny. So I don't know where
on that same token, though, on that same token, I think one of the things that people also need to start doing is recognizing the mistakes you've made in life, and instead of dwelling on those and basically walking through life backwards, looking at the mistakes of your past. If you walk backwards, eventually you're going to stumble. Why? Because you're not watching where you're going. You're not seeing what's coming. You're so fixated on the past and the pain of the past that you can't see the potential of the future. And what I tell people is, you need to turn around. You need to do a 180 and turn around and start looking toward the future and learn the lessons from the past. Embrace those bad things, because those bad things are what taught you, or could have taught you, some of your most valuable lessons. Man, it's funny. I have so many skeletons in my closet, but I opened my closet doors a long time ago. It's like I embraced those skeletons. I lived in the back of a car for 6 months. I was homeless. I was a functioning drug user for close to 5 years on meth. This was not like me getting high in the washroom someplace and smoking a joint. I mean, I was doing some serious stuff. In the moment, I knew it wasn't good for me, but I have been able to garner and learn such valuable life lessons as a result of those in the moment negative experiences, that if somebody asked me, Jerry, would you change anything about your life? And for me, because I'm so happy with where I am right now, my answer would have to be absolutely not. Because if I alter anything that I went through, good, bad, or indifferent, I'm not the same person I am today. So understand that instead of shunning those negative experiences that you might have had in the past, it's okay to embrace those if you're embracing the lesson that you learned to move you forward. Yeah. So I think that's a very important thing for people to recognize, is that you can find the good in absolutely anything, even if it was the most horrific thing that's happened to you. If you're willing to use your mindset in the right way, you can find those positive things.
One more thing. You remember the movie Lucy?
Yes. Scarlett Johansson
got to 70% of her brain or whatever.
Right.
She's controlling matter and whatnot.
With all the fingers.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
I know it's a movie, but you when you get your mindset right, that's what happens to your obstacles. You acknowledge them, like, oh, okay. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. You use them as stepping stones. It seems like people are using them more as weights than stepping stones. It's like, your mistake is not supposed to be a life sentence. It's supposed to be a learning experience. That's it. Learn it and let it go. Put it behind you and move forward. Like
a video game. You got to trying to get to the next level. Well, you might have to go through that first level 1,000 times. Oh my goodness! It was left upright. Oh, I didn't even know. You know what I'm saying?
And how many times have you gotten so close, and then you're like, dang it, I just missed it. But you don't give up, because you now know. Do you know how close I was? I can do this. And that's that mental piece that I can do this. And that's one of the reasons I think what you said is, be realistic in your approach, but also develop that consistency, because the consistency is what is that thing is going to let you know, I really can do this. Because you have to have that I'm not going to quit attitude and mentality. That's really at the end of the day, no matter how much progress, baby steps are still steps, and it's like, it's still forward motion and forward movement. As long as you commit to yourself that no matter what, I'm not going to quit. I might not get there as quick as I want to. I might not be an Adonis in 30 days, but I'm going to keep on forging forward and always strive for forward progress. And I think if you can have that kind of mentality, that's what's going to drive you to success. That's really the thing. So Um, is it cool if we jump on to the next question then? Okay. So this one is in regards to maintaining a positive attitude. So every individual, no matter how dedicated, faces setbacks and challenges. How do you maintain a positive attitude amidst adversities, especially when it comes to health and personal development? And why do you believe this positive outlook is vital for success?
You develop it by adhering to the first two things that we said, choosing happiness, establishing the foundation, being consistent, having a mentor, all those type of things prepare you, that, like they say, iron sharpens iron. They prepare you for the thing that's coming. And like I say, this is a journey. And a lot of times, if we knew what was down the road, like me, if somebody had told me it was going to take me 15 years to turn pro, you know what I'm saying? Like, imagine I'm just starting and I'm like, because I got clients that I train right now who've done one contest, done one show, and they're already talking about they expect to turn pro like in the next show. And I'm just like, wow. So it's mind blowing. And not that they're not talented, but it's just how the way, because of the internet and Google and all that, everybody wants everything right this second.
Right.
And I know you've heard stories about people going down the highway and it's traffic or whatever, and then they get way up and they see a wreck or whatever. Well, if you didn't get stuck back here and you were up there, you'd be the one.
You could be in that wreck.
You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times we have to like be grateful for right now in the moment, and gratitude is everything. When you can still be grateful, you having all kinds of issues financially, health wise. I mean, my wife, I got sued, and so I got sued, right? And as the lawsuit is coming to a head or an end, my wife got diagnosed with cancer.
Oh.
So it was like a roller coaster, bro. It was like insane. I'm just like, and there was so many more things came with that. But in that same time, I was more blessed than I've ever been in my life. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? It's so crazy like I say, have those obstacles to deal with. You still have to deal with them. But my perspective was so different. I told my wife, I said, the old me, the X-Man, wouldn't have been no good to you when you was going through her cancer. She got diagnosed, and then of course they immediately wanted to do biopsy and surgery and chemo and radiation, like, next week.
Right.
And I was like, oh, babe, I was like, no, we got to get you healthy first. She was like 40 pounds overweight. She had high blood pressure, high cholesterol. And then you die. I'm like, we can't go straight we're going to hop out of the frying pan into the fire. I said,
yeah,
we're going to get you healthy. So I took her through this all the stuff that I know. And I realized at that time that God prepared me for that moment. I learned about how the body works and how cells function and, all those type of things. And I applied that to her. And her tumor, she had a 8 centimeters by 5 centimeter tumor when she first got diagnosed. I put her on the protocol. We went back in. They couldn't even find it with the ultrasound. They had to do a MRI, and it had went from 8 by 5 to 0.8. So it was flat all the way. Yeah, and that was before they did any conventional.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so I'm like, okay, well, if somebody gets diagnosed with cancer, everybody panics and they tell you this long word that you can't even say in one sentence. But if you realize it's just your cells that are abnormal, they're going awry and it's out of control because of your lifestyle and all these other elements. So, okay, well, all right, well, number one, it's not a light switch. It's not like a Band-Aid. You can't rip it off or cut it out. And then, even if you do surgery, the mechanism that caused it is still in your body. The tumor is just where it showed up. Whatever that metabolic process
the tumor is the evidence of it.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever that metabolic process is still going on.
Right.
So that's where most people, you have to start there and then let it shrink as much as possible. Because my wife still ended up doing conventional. Okay. Number one, because once you get into the system, you'd have to just opt out completely. They won't let you, basically. Right. So anyway, but the doctors literally looked at her and said, "We can heal you." And I'm just like, well, she just lost 90. The tumor is 90% smaller. I think she's already healed. Y'all just gonna clean it up, the surgery and the neurotic tissue. So anyway, like I say, I learned all of that by going through that. And if I didn't cleanse my temple and repent, then my selfish person, my selfish consuming self would have done like a lot of these guys, or, you know, like a couple will be together for 20 years and one of them gets cancer, the other one just leaves them hanging high and dry. My wife was in a couple of Facebook groups and they were telling you know, because I told her we're not doing the conventional until you're healthy. And all the people in the group was like, divorce him, he's trying to kill you, and all this stuff. And I'm like, I done sat through way too many seminars, way too much information to not at least attempt to try it.
Right.
And as soon as I applied it, it started working immediately. And I mean, she was so healthy when she went in there. They was just like, oh my God. So then, before the surgeon did the surgery, she called me and she said, Mr. Freeman, I normally don't do this, and I'm probably not supposed to do this, but I know how hard you worked. And I just wanted to let you know that your wife's case is exceptional. She said, we did not expect anything near this result. She has no trace of cancer, blah, 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 all this stuff. And I was like, praise God, you know what I'm saying? So I don't think it would have had the same result if she had just went straight in there, because she was already sick.
Right.
She was already sick and she was already beat up mentally. You know what I'm saying? And
Absolutely.
and I said all that because, you know, I asked God to speak through me right now. But so there's a lot of people, you know, stuck in the mud, and I get stuck all the time. But I'm stuck because I let myself get stuck. As soon as I snap out of it, I'm all right again. But we're human. And you get to absorb the energy from everyone else in the world too. I'm an empath, so I probably absorb way more. You know, I have days where I don't feel right, and I have to call one of my friends and be like, oh, that's what's wrong with me. Something wrong with you. I'm like, I knew something was wrong. I mean, I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, I'm fine, but I feel this weight. And then I would speak to a friend of mine, and sure enough, I'm feeling their issue. And it's kind of like, we're all connected. Absolutely. We all come from one source. Absolutely. I don't, whether you believe it or not, whether you believe in the Big Bang or let there be light, we all agree that we come from one source.
Right.
So whatever that is, I don't think our minds are, you know, enough to understand that completely. And that's part of the journey as well.
Right.
Because I learned that it's already within you. God is within you.
Right.
He's waiting on you. He's waiting on you. So
you mentioned, when you mentioned about the cancer, I think one of the things people have to understand is you don't catch cancer. Okay. You don't stand in line at the store and the person next to you coughs and all of a sudden you caught their cancer. It doesn't work like that. You develop cancer as a result of the right environment for everything to go wrong. And I think it's very important for people to understand that, is that, you know, the majority of the issues that people are having, whether it be a cancer issue, a diabetes issue, a weight issue, issue, just fill in those blanks. The vast majority of those are not genetic. They're not genetic. We like to point to genetics because it allows us to duck responsibility. And because we don't want to admit to ourselves that the reason we're sick is because of the choices we've made. But if we're willing to actually just look at this objectively and say, hey, who, what, and where I am is a combination of all the different choices that I've made up to this point, for good or for bad. And it's like, it's never too late to make that change. Just like you said, you know, before that you were willing to have her undergo that traditional aspect of treatment, you wanted to make her as strong as possible because you knew what that meant. And that was one of the other things, is that you said you've learned all these different things and you applied those. And I just want to emphasize this. They say that knowledge is power. And to me, that's absolute BS. Knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. Knowledge is potential. You need to do something with that. It's like knowing that eating a bag of Doritos is not good for you, but doing it anyway. Okay. Right. That's knowledge that you have that has no potential to help you because you're not applying it. So it's, I think it's also very important. I appreciate the fact that you said that, that you applied that information to your personal experience too. That's another thing. Most of the things that we talk about, we're not talking hypotheticals. We're talking about real world experience. We're talking about things that have actually happened in our lives that have given us a level of insight that you have to go through it to get. You know, that's just the reality. You sometimes have to go through these things to be able to get that insight and have a better understanding. And Tony, you know, they say 2020, you know, hindsight is 2020, meaning that in the moment, you're probably not going to recognize the lesson. But that once you get down the road a little bit, you kind of look back, and I'm not saying dwell on the bad things, but when you look back and you now understand the lesson that you were supposed to learn or what you were supposed to take away from that experience, that's what makes that hindsight 2020. And like you just said, you're now using hindsight. You're looking back and you're like, had we not done it that way, we might be having a very different conversation today.
Well, it's just when she started on that path, there were people on that path with her, and very few of them did the conventional, the natural. They all just go. We run to the doctor and they make you sign this paper, and then once you sign the paper, now you don't have any say so. You know what I'm saying? And if you try to buck, then they just flick you off like a booger. You know what I'm saying? Like so now you're stuck. You have nothing. Right. And so you really have to understand. Okay, I don't know everything, but a lot of times they say this causes. It's really repetitive lifestyle. I mean, because your body's constantly replicating. So if you were thrown into a pristine environment, 7 years from now, you'd be a pristine human being again, because your body's always renewing itself.
Rebuilding, right.
Take a pristine person and put them in a toxic environment, 7 years from now, it's going to be a toxic person. You know what I'm saying? So that's the reality of it. This organism that God gave us, created for us, is self-perpetuating for the most part. And our job is to control it, to do what we're supposed to do nutritionally and all that. Our society is set up against us. So in other words, you have to go out of your way to eat healthy and do the right thing and to find clean water. You have to literally go out of your way for that now, whereas it's supposed to be free. All of it's supposed to be, you know what I mean? So when you realize, when you have all those obstacles, you have to circumvent. I always tell people my programs are countermeasures for what's happening to you every day. And to know, like I say, to know the basic stuff. When you talked about DNA earlier, so you have things that are genetic, right? Skin color, all that type of stuff. But then you have epigenetics, which is your genetics that are in this controlled environment or uncontrolled environment that we call life, and how you turn out is going to be dependent on your environment.
And I think control is a very good word to use too, because I think people are mistaking the word control for being able to say what you want, go where you want, scream in somebody's face if you feel like it, do what. But for me, the reality of control is controlling your life is not letting a bag of Cheetos influence you to the point where you're doing something to yourself that you shouldn't. That you're not in control. If you're an alcoholic is not in control because they've become dependent on something that consumption of that alcohol does for them. And so they're not in control. And I think that's a very big, important thing to think about, is that everybody says that they want control of their life. Yet everybody, and I'm going to say everybody, a vast majority of the people out there, they relinquish control on not just a daily basis, not just an hourly basis, but in some cases, a minutely basis. They are letting all these other things control their thoughts, their actions, their personality, their hopes, their dreams. It's all being controlled by all these outside things that have no significance, but they've allowed them to basically create a false sense of significance for them. And then it's actually creating that control. So for people who really are interested in taking back control of their lives, I think the first thing that you can do for that is focus on your health and then focus on your happiness. And if you can get those two things centered and get a really strong foundation, then you can start building a life that you really do control, because these outside influence and forces aren't really pushing your decision making. You're doing it because it's like you said, Tony, man, if somebody put a delicious cookie right in front of you right now, man, there's going to be a part of you that's just going to look at that like, you are mine. But then there's another part of you that says, just not today. Right. Because you've now realized those things. So it's not that it can't be done, but it's not easy. It's not easy, but it's worth it. And that's one of the things too. And sometimes it's simple. And people, I think they confuse those two terms, easy and simple. You know, because
that's why when I was saying that earlier, I've had to slow down because it definitely is not easier.
It's not
nowhere close to being easy, but it's simple.
Yeah.
And it's repetitive. You consistently repetitive, consistent, progressive resistance, just like lifting weights. Have you ever seen anybody? I'm pretty sure everybody listening, you've known someone who was sick for a long time, and eventually they end up passing, right? And so in the beginning they were sick and they were super worried, and then sometime in that journey they actually just let it go. You know what I'm saying? Like to where they accepted it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like whatever happens in between the worry and the blah 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 to accepting it, they have that peace. My mom, she passed a couple years ago, and I remember seeing she had COVID, and she passed from pulmonary fibrosis.
Okay.
She had bronchitis, and then she got COVID, and then the COVID protocol exacerbated her issue. Anyway, she was worried. She was worried. She was terrified of COVID and all that. And then she was in the hospital. And I remember one of the last conversations I had with her, she was worried about when she came home, you know, because they have all the stuff, the machines and all that at the hospital. She was worried about that. And I was just like, well, your setup at home will be better than this. So, you know, just take care of your part and make it home. Well, you know, she was in the hospital like 3 months. That last 3 or 4 weeks, she was at peace. It was totally different attitude about the situation. And she said she got right with God and she was good. And so as a son, I'm you know, I miss her flesh, but I realize that, you know, life, you know, there's something after this. You find out when you get there. It's not like you can't know until you get there, but I do know that our real me, the spiritual me, is separate from this body. You know, this body.
Yeah.
And so once I learned that, I was cool. And but people, that's what I'm saying. You have to realize, and it's with everything. And that's the extreme level. But whether it's weight loss, health, anything like that, there's a beginning where you're nervous, unsure, uncertain, scared, all those type of things. But as you go to the journey, if you're seeking enlightenment, usually you find it, and then that's where peace comes in.
That's a great point. It's a great point. All right, so Tony, I'm going to throw you a pop question, man.
Okay.
This one's off script. So I thought about this right before we got started, so I jotted this down. What is the most unexpected benefit you've experienced as a result of your bodybuilding experience and career?
Unexpected.
Well, I think everybody has those expectations, like I'm going to get bigger, I'm going to do this. What's that unexpected thing?
You know, when I first started, I really didn't have any expectations. I just didn't want to be skinny. And so my expectations started coming later on, and as I started having success. And what I didn't expect is the reality that every athlete, every person is a bodybuilder. You're either you or you're body destroying. You know what I'm saying? You're either trying to be better or you're standing still.
You're not.
If you're standing still, you're getting worse. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So what I did not expect is how many people who, like my famous people who I'm a fan of or I admire, I didn't expect them to know who I was before I met them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll tell you a story. I did a show, and Jason Statham is one of my favorite actors.
Okay.
So he's in the hotel lobby and in the little eating breakfast, and we're doing the Arnold Classic. So I guess Arnold invited him and Sly, and he had it was like a bunch
from
of
the Expendables.
Yeah, from the Expendables. Exactly.
Gotcha.
So we had them all there, and I was locked in on Jason because that's my dude. So I saw him sitting at the table, and he was like, you know, and I was like, what's up? I was like, oh, shoot. And so later on that night, I was talking to my buddy who actually won the show, and Jason was across the room with his people, and he saw me, and he excused himself, and he came straight over, and he stuck his hand out and said, "Hey, I'm Jason. I'm Jason. You're my favorite bodybuilder." And I was just, first of all, I was like a chick, you know what I'm saying? I was
Were you
like,
fangirling? Were you fangirling, man?
and my buddy next to me was like, "What about me?" And he was like, "Oh, you good too. I like you." But it was just really hilarious, and it really put it in perspective. Another time, I walked in the gym and I saw The Rock in the gym, and I was like, "Dwayne Johnson." He's like, "Toney Freeman," and you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Another
Yeah.
time, I was and coming out of a hotel in California, and I see this Bentley roll up convertible, and it's X-Man, get out of the way, it's Arnold. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so anyway, so I did not expect that. You know, once I became, you know, the X-Men or whatever, I never really embraced my celebrity. I was like a driven animal trying to be the best physique in the world. I didn't even really pay attention to none of that stuff. And the fact that I was already, you know, I kind of hit my peak at around 40, between 40 and 44. Right. So imagine I'm already in my 40s. So when it's all happening, and at that time I was so used to it, I just didn't even really think nothing of it. But I realize now, when you're given a platform, that people are watching, people are following you and all that type of stuff. So I was very famous without the rich. You know what I'm saying? So now I'm working now I'm working on the rich part. I don't really care to be famous anymore.
You know, it's funny that you say that, man, because that is exactly how I feel too. Is like, you know that we've done, I've done a lot of the events in the water business and everything. I've been up on stage, that one in Vegas, we had like 4 or 5,000 people there. It was like, I've been up in front of everybody and, people recognize me and everything else. And I'll be honest with you now, at this point, man, I could care less. I could care less about any of that. It's like, I want to take care of my family and I want to make a difference. That's it. I want to make a real difference. I don't need somebody like being all excited to see me when it's not the right excitement. I don't know if that's, what I mean. It's like, you know what I
Bro,
mean?
that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm having a hard time really building my social media back. My Instagram and my Facebook got hacked,
Ah,
and I'm just like, I don't even, you know what I'm saying? Like, I really don't. I mean, I love everybody and all that, but this whole world is so image driven, and nothing wrong with it. I mean, everybody's motivating each other, blah blah blah. But I've been there, done that. So I care about my pets, my family, my kids, grandkids, all that type of stuff. My vision is completely different, and I'm grateful because I did get to experience all those things, and was the best in the world at something. That's pretty cool thing to hang
very
your hat
cool,
on.
man. Are you kidding me?
So,
How can look? I'm kind of fangirling a little bit with you. I have always had, and I'm serious, man. I've always had so much respect from you from the time that we first met, and and started talking, and then talked about doing the magazine and everything. I just appreciated you because I know how much work you've put in. I know you're one of those people who walk their talk.
right.
And to me, that is a big deal because you really don't find too many genuine people, at least not anymore. I mean, I
Right.
think it was a lot more commonplace back in the day, but recently, man, it's like you find a bunch of very superficial shells and you have no idea who's really inside of there. And so I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
That little person that's being bullied by all them demons.
Basically, yeah, basically.
It
But
is.
I really appreciate you taking the time to to share your wisdom, man. That applied knowledge that you have. That's what wisdom is. Wisdom is applied knowledge that you learned a lesson from. That's how you become wise, is to figure these things out. And I just appreciate you. So Toney, do me this favor. Then we're going to be wrapping this up because I want to be respectful of your time. What do you have going on right now? Tell people what you've got going on and where they can find out more information about you. And I'll make sure I splash some, website addresses or email addresses or whatever you want to let people know how they can contact you or check out more information about programs and offerings that you have. Because if you need an endorsement, man, you got mine, 100%.
So I'm doing online coaching, a little bit of personal training. That's more just so I can be hands-on with people.
Okay.
And so I do network marketing still. I promote several products. We do DNA-based customized nutrition, gut health. I'm working on a couple of products for just the retail market for insulin resistance.
Okay.
And a couple other things. And then there's this project that I'm working on that has to do with recycling and mining and like just taking trash basically and turn it into valuable resources.
Okay.
I can go. This would be a whole nother conversation, but that project is really something that so imagine being able to take plastic and run it through this mill and combine it with this substance that takes something that takes 400 years in a landfill and make it biodegradable within 12 months. That's the project is like that. And
So is there a website address, or is there someplace people can go to find out more?
It will be. We just had to merge two companies together, so it's going to be all new everything. But
well, how can people like either contact you to be able to be set up to find out more information when that is available, or is there an email address or website that we can direct them to? Because I definitely want to be able to have people be able to contact you, because as they have probably already realized now, you are a wealth of knowledge.
Yep, you can find me on Messenger on Facebook, just Toney Freeman, Toney Freeman. Instagram is TFXman305, Toney Freeman Xman 305. And my regular email is ToneyFreeman305@gmail.
Okay.
And so I'm easy to find. Just Google me. I'm easy to find. I'm not hiding. That's, there's one thing about being famous without the rich. You got to be a good boy. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody knows your business. It used to crack me up.
Doing one of these. What's he doing now?
I go to these foreign countries where I'm like, I know nobody don't know me here. And somebody will ride by in the car, X-Man. I'm just like, oh my goodness, I'm literally in a place I've never been before. So it's really crazy. So I'm very extremely grateful. And I remember coming up when I was small and then I got big, I was taught, that when I have more responsibility. I have to be more in tune with myself. I have to control my temper and all those type of things I had to really hone in on and practice. And luckily I was already a nice guy. And so when people see, oh, he's such a nice guy. I remember I do tours and stuff, and I've had people stop me in the middle of conversation and apologize for their perception of me before they got to know me. And I'm, of course, across the room, like you say, 6'2", 305 pounds. And I know I wasn't walking around smiling. People used to say, you should smile more. I'm just like, if I was smiling all the time, you guys would think I was a crazy person. I can't be this big and hulking with a big old grin on my face all the time. So,
well, that's I appreciate that. Basically understand exactly what you mean. You have to hold yourself to a higher standard.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's one of the things that if more people would actually kind of gravitate towards, is you don't have to be the best in the world to hold yourself to a higher standard. All you have to be is someone with a desire to be the best version of yourself that you can be. So, well, listen, Tony,
focus on becoming the best person, the best you could be, and then give it to the world.
Absolutely.
When you present yourself to the world as the best version of yourself, your life just becomes sweet. The financial and all that other stuff, it can come and you might not make it, but the life part, the human part is beautiful.
Absolutely. Any parting words you'd like to leave people with?
Just, stay healthy, wealthy, and happy. And happiness is a choice. So choose happiness and you will attract all the other things that they tell you have to have before you be happy.
Well, thank you so much again, Tony. I really appreciate your time, the information. Again, I appreciate you so much, buddy. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to conclude this episode of the New You Health and Happiness Hour with Gerald Kostecka. It has been my pleasure to have our special guest today, Toney Freeman, share his knowledge, his experience, his insight that it's taken him a lifetime to develop and to accumulate. And I appreciate the fact that he's taking the time to share this information with not only me, but you guys as well. So look forward to seeing you on our next episode. Please like, subscribe, do all those things that we need you to make this thing happen. Please share this information with people that you think can benefit from it. We have some really great people that are doing these interviews. And again, I appreciate Toney so much. I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of your day. Be safe out there. Be healthy. Get your steps in. Make sure that you're being hydrated. And until the next episode, you guys take care.